Hey, it's Fletcher, Vice President of Public Safety Solutions at 911 Inform. Next generation 911 networks are evolving just faster than you can shake a stick at. And now centers are starting to realize that they can back each other up, not just across county lines or in the neighboring community, because when you have a disaster, it's usually a little more widespread. People are reaching out across state lines and massive state lines. So I was able to get Steve Martini and Scott Brillman, who have set this up between Fairfax and Nashville, Metro Nashville. Guys, welcome to the podcast this morning. I really appreciate you getting on and sharing this great knowledge that you guys have built and put into play here.
Thanks, Fletch.
Yeah, great to be here.
Yeah. So, Steve, tell me a little bit about Metro Nashville. Give everybody a little rundown, because now I know Scott takes care of our nation's capital, but you take care of some very important assets in the Nashville Metro as well. So go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. Party City, baby. Come hear some country music. I mean, just earlier this week, I was at an Old Dominion concert, and Kenny Chesney made a surprise appearance. So we have a great time. Come to Nashville. We'll have a great time. Here in Nashville, we're a population of about 700,000, a little over 1 million when you consider all the commuters in and out during the day, and then definitely about 1.5 million in the broader metro area, the surrounding counties. Operationally, we have 186 dispatchers, 245 total staff in various support roles and whatnot. And we, like locally, we've got a primary and a backup center, and the facility we're in, we've been in for nearly 50 years. It's split on 2 floors, so our call takers are upstairs and our radio dispatchers are downstairs. So we have our own unique challenges in how we communicate and whatnot, just here even locally. So that's what we look like in dispatch every day. Really kind of simple. We got 1 police department, 1 fire department. EMS is up underneath that fire department. So though the response area is broad, our response partners are pretty streamlined, right?
Yeah, no, great. Scott, you've got what I like to call the house that Souter built, one of my favorite centers down there, and an important center in the National Capital Region. Tell us about Fairfax.
Yeah, really, you can take what Steve just said about Nashville, all the numbers, and just lift it up and plug it into Fairfax. Our numbers match our population, our call volume, our staffing, and that's really why we went in this together. But yeah, this center behind me was built by Steve Souter in 2008. It's a world-renowned structure. It's embassy grade, whatever that means. But we take about 1 million calls a year down there, and we're the largest center in Virginia. And so we surround. We protect DC. DC really protects DC, but we're there when they need help, and we surround DC. And I don't know. We have a great workforce here, and we're so excited about working with Nashville.
No, that's fantastic. So as I understand the story, you two guys were hanging out at NENA last year, and somebody shoved the two of you into the corner and said, "You guys need to chat."
It's true.
It's pretty close. Yeah. We're just sitting there at a table. We were between sessions. There was an afternoon of some sort, and Brillman came by. We were talking to just a handful of friends. I'm sure Benford was in the mix there somewhere, and a handful of other folks walked by. And honestly, what they mentioned was that some great innovators, when you mentioned the smart ones, right, in this mix, that answer is Jim Lake and Bob Finney at Charleston and at Collier. I could just worship at their church a long time and probably still not know as much as they know, or things that they lean into. But we heard rumor that they were, or some discussion, they were considering this, right? Looking for an option to pass calls across state lines and support. And we said, this is a good idea. And we kind of looked at each other and said, I think we can do that. Can we do that? And we walked through the finer points of it and said, yeah, I think we can do that. So we started into the process to really address the governance first, and not necessarily the technology piece, but how do we get approval between our 2 agencies and then move into the rest of the piece.
Yeah. So Scott, give me an idea of what you went through from a governance perspective. Where did you dive into there to make sure all that was situated? Because if you don't have that, you could do all this technical work, and we know that can all be done. But then if you don't have the governance and the operations, it's all for naught, right?
Yeah, and Steve and I are not the smartest people in the room when it comes to law, and so, but we do have smart people that we reached out to. We reached out to NASNA. We reached out to the COG in the DC region. We worked with our attorneys. We worked with the emergency management community to figure out the best way to proceed with this. And when we first started talking about this at NENA, I think things were going on around the country. There were some outages. There were some outages, I think, in Massachusetts, in the West Coast. And we said to each other, if this happens to us, we need to figure it out. Like we can't, have people go to firehouses and police stations. We need to continue to have 911 work. And then that's how I think this came about. But yeah, we reached out to other communities out there besides 911 to figure out the best way to make this happen.
Did you have any major challenges getting through that?
Only 3, maybe 4, right? Of course,
yeah.
Right. Really trying to identify the Scott had a great partner there in his area that has walked through large responses, right? The hurricane responses and the Pentagon disaster on 9/11 and a handful of other major response issues. So he kind of looked up and said, I think EMACs grant you the authority that you need to engage in this cross-state line conversation. And we're still kind of exploring that aspect. It says, all right, we can do a mutual aid agreement between the two of us, but what does an emergency management assistance compact do? What was required to trigger it? And how does that differ between a state and a commonwealth? Because I think there are things on our side in Tennessee that we're still going to need to do to authorize the activation of a cross-state mutual aid support that maybe Virginia doesn't have to do, because there's more autonomy at the local level that the state holds on to here in Tennessee. So understanding some of those differences, what do we have to do locally? I'd love to get into some of the governance concerns in Nashville as we went through this resolution, because it's curious the various things that can come up. It sounds like on the surface, oh, it's a great idea, but there's always questions.
Yeah. So what'd you run into, Scott?
Yeah. I was going to mention, but what we did find out was when the hurricanes were affecting North Carolina and Tennessee and Southern Virginia, all the EMACs were activated, and it was so easy to do this. States were offering to take 911 calls across the EZNet, and we didn't have this red tape, and we could just flip a switch, and start taking calls. And so, when there's not a hurricane, we had to figure out, how to proceed.
Well, that's the best time to do it, right? When your house is on fire, that's not when you start looking for the fire extinguisher. Yeah. Most people do, but you should know where it is ahead of time. Now, beyond call taking, because getting calls across a network with the EZNet in place, that's not a huge technology challenge. That's more of a coordination challenge. But what about the dispatch CAD to CAD? What did you guys do for that, if anything?
We're still working to finalize the details of that. And I think there's no lack of solutions out there to proceed with CAD to CAD. There's all these other vendors out there, these disruptors that offer solutions where systems can talk to each other. So we're gonna go through different scenarios of what could impact our centers and figure out the best solution to go with, where we may not be in the center. We may be on a bus headed to the backup center. We may be on our phones dispatching with a radio. And so we're gonna look at all these scenarios and figure out the best way to proceed.
Yeah, no, you might have Thor out there someplace deployed. If it's Nashville, that's going to look more like the Beverly Hillbillies Clampett mobile.
Yeah, true. Yeah. Yeah. We'll tie our best dispatcher in that chair on the front, like Grandma. So. Yeah, I think all the cloud CAD solutions that exist out there now, Mark, we've got 3 different options between the two of us just in those. And since we've, and truly, which is kind of funny, we didn't really hit a big media release. It was just the fact that this resolution was going before Metro Council, that it was picked up by some local news outlets, and they reached out and said, hey, what does this look like? What does this backup 911? Obviously, it's still sensitive following the AT&T bombing to ask those questions. So since then, we've had a couple of industry partners reach out also and go, hey, here's an option, there's an option. So it's really just putting everything on the table and understanding which of the options that exist are the best.
Yeah. Now, are you guys on the same CAD platform today?
No.
Okay. So you don't have the benefit of that, but there are plenty of solutions. And when I talked to Bob Finney and Jim Lake, even they had cobbled together something out of the technology that existed. And it's not the end state, but it was enough to prove the initial step which was getting the calls from Florida to South Carolina, but then getting them back to Florida to dispatch. And it, like I said, it wasn't end state, but it was something that worked in a fly. And I'll tell you what, when the big one does hit, you could do all the planning in the world. That may not be there and available. And you might have to pull something out of the air and go, well, let's try this. You just never know.
You really raise a good point, Mark, that was worth something that we kind of experienced following the Christmas bombing is, and whatever this incident is that would trigger this partnership, they activate this partnership with Fairfax, it would have to be bigger than the AT&T network outage that we saw. And in our region, it's the New Madrid Fault earthquake. We've been talking about the New Madrid Fault that formed the Kentucky Lake and Lake Barkley 120 years ago. If we had something like that again, there's a lot of infrastructure, there's a lot of population in those spaces now that would be significantly impacted that weren't there in the 1915, 18, 20 when that earthquake occurred. So to be something very significant, when we had the Christmas bombing, every AT&T customer in our area couldn't make a phone call. Their service was down. So the number of 911 calls we were fielding were limited to the other carriers who still had service, right? So in this situation, there's a certain percentage of our population that won't be able to make a phone call in the first place. Mm-hmm. So we're not really sending our live 911 call volume to the other center and going, good luck. You're already at a fraction, and it may be a fraction of the total calls that are coming through.
Right. Yeah, and same with Fairfax. You mentioned a great guy, Steve Souter, but we're talking today about this topic because of him. We had a storm that's called the derecho that hit Baltimore and DC in 2012, and this whole area lost 911 for days. And that's why Steve pushed the EZNet, so hard. And I think we were one of the first to go on the EZNet, and they call it the Fairfax contract. But that allowed us to instantly connect to Nashville. And if I think Steve didn't push it so hard, I don't think we would all be on it right now.
You're absolutely correct. I mean, he's an absolute, look, I like both of you guys a ton, and I look up to both of you, but neither of you hold a candle to Souter. I'm sorry. True. Steve is my absolute hero. And I sat on TFOPA with Steve, and just the knowledge and experience and just the clear thinking that man brings to the table is incredible. And, when you stepped in down there, Scott, I told you, I said, you got big shoes to fill, boy. And, I'm telling you, you've done a great job doing that. There's only one thing that you're missing in your center that Nashville has.
I don't want to say it on this webcam.
It's a Martini director.
A Martini director. Oh, or a Martini.
Yeah.
Right here in his chat. Yeah, just Martini director.
Just the Martini director. Right. This is who I know who I am. Right. If I get lost, where to return me. That's you talk about Souter and some of these other folks, again, Jim Lake, Bob Penny, some of the other folks that are really leading in this space and have I've heard these conversations in the past. People say, "Oh, we're sitting on the shoulders of giants," but that's exactly true, right? We are able to leverage solutions that exist today because of the great work and the forethought that was invested by folks that have since retired or maybe are nearing up to retirement. A lot of credit goes to the folks who laid a foundation that allows us to just add a next piece to it.
So what's your recommendation for folks that have the same idea and have a similar situation, but just don't know where to get started? Scott, what do you suggest that they start off with to get this collaboration going?
It's a great question. Through this whole process, that was the topic on our brains between Steve and I. We wanted to set this up for the rest of the country, where it'd be easy to provide mutual aid for each other. And so the message would be, find yourself a sister city or sister county throughout the United States to partner with. And that's why we approached the emergency management community to see, and we're still going to work with them to see how we can easily do this, where everybody can match up with someone out of their region. And so to be determined how we get there, but this is the first step.
Steve, the two examples we have between Fairfax and Nashville and South Carolina and Florida, these are Eastern Corridor based relationships. What do you think about moving west from a relationship? How far can you go comfortably?
Did you listen to my council meeting on Tuesday night when I got that question? One of my council members asked, he says, I know we're going Virginia, but why not California? Why not, Texas? Why not somewhere? And honestly, the answer that I gave him was ESI nets, as fortunate as we are to have one here in Tennessee and Virginia also, it's not a guarantee every state everywhere. There's no guarantee that there's a good ESI net solution in every state. And I think the further west you go, there's still a lot of work being done in some places to build those. So as those build out and the opportunities exist, certainly there's nothing limiting us in this conversation that says Nashville's only 911 backup partner is Fairfax. We may look up and go, all right, there's a partner in northern Arizona or in California or whatever that also makes sense, and there's the ability to connect that solution. Certainly, I feel pretty confident in this solution by itself. It's a rare day that Nashville and Fairfax are impacted by the same emergency at the same time. Typically, whatever snowstorm hits us doesn't survive over the mountains, and whatever's impacting them came up from the south and didn't impact us.
Right, but then again, you do have the derecho, which worked its way up the East Coast from the Metro the National region right up through to New York. So again, you never know, right? You can guess.
Sure.
Yeah.
So
sure.
do you see a national ESI-net umbrella as a potential solution that we need to build from an architecture?
Makes a lot of sense. I mean, every state has autonomy, so I'm not exactly sure how you get in there and build a national and then force its use. But definitely, there's a benefit. And in those states that I visited that in the last 3 years that have desire to have an ESI net but don't have one, certainly they could benefit from having that the core created for them.
Yeah, because if I want to call Wyoming, I don't have to know what carrier you're on. I don't have to know what service or local LEC you've got. I just dial your number and the network gets me there. Now, the PSTN network has evolved over many, many, many years, and we're talking about a brand new ESI-net that doesn't even exist yet. But what better time to start putting some guardrails around what should happen? And I don't see that work happening right yet, but I think somewhere there needs to be an organizational committee that said, here are some models that may work. I think just to move, I'm looking for things to foster this, right? I can't always rely on the Brillman Martini, compact to exist, or the Finney Lake compact to exist and go, hey, let's go build this, right? We need something there to where one guy can say, hey, it's Dave out in Phoenix. I need somebody to connect to. And somebody to go, yeah, hey, Dave, this is Jerry up in Milwaukee. I'll connect to you.
It's so interesting you mentioned that, because our partners in fire and police, they've been doing this for 100 years. When there's a disaster, when there's an emergency and a town needs help, there's all these other fire chiefs calling saying, hey, we'll send some units, we'll send some fire trucks. And then the only important thing is that the hydrants can hook up to the hoses. Mm-hmm. But it's a phone call. And I would like to see that in the 911 industry, where somebody needs help in Louisiana and we can reach out and say, hey, we can take your calls for an hour or two and help you out. I would like to see that across the country.
So we need to be able to provide mutual aid.
Yeah.
Let me go get that URL real quick.
Somebody call Jimmy.
So what advice do you have for somebody getting started with all this? I mean, what's your words of wisdom? What do you wish you did that you kind of missed out on? Steve, we'll start with you.
Gosh, I don't know that I have any regrets of what we shouldn't have done. What I will say is just be brave enough to explore it, right? Lean into it, find a partner. I think at conferences makes a whole lot of sense, right? You're already whittling down to the most innovative and forward-leaning folks looking for solutions by those folks that are in the hallways at a national conference, right? They're already looking to see if they can do better. So find that partner that already has kind of a similar mindset. Find a partner who's similarly sized, similarly prepared, has a similar staff training that they can receive those calls. We talked about it before. You can do this job on the tailgate of a pickup truck with a yellow pad and a cell phone and a mobile radio, right? All the other technology we have makes it a whole lot nicer, but truly the day-to-day, I can assign a unit, write down a call, say where they went, and handle this with a pen and a yellow pad and a cell phone and a mobile radio. So you're looking for somebody else who it's the people, it's the person holding that phone and that radio and that yellow pad that make the difference. So you're looking for somebody that has a similar mindset. And then you're just navigating the processes. That interoperability continuum is really handy, right? It gives the structure of governance and technology and usage and training and standard operating procedure. You just run the list. Go, all right, let's pick one, start there, and then move to the next, move to the next. And that good layout gives us a good conversation.
As long as you don't hit a hog with your pickup truck and get his snout caught in your back bumper.
You done figured it out, Mark. That's exactly it, right? Just stay out of them hogs.
Joke there, but Scott, what about you? What do you think?
No regrets, but this is new. This is new to the industry, and anything new, you're gonna find roadblocks. You're gonna have some people push back. You're gonna have to pivot, but it's important to pick a good partner where you're on a text chain in the background while you're on a Teams meeting, working together while your attorneys are talking. And so it's important to have a close relationship navigating through all new things. But you'll get there. All good things, it takes time, but you'll get there.
It's really important. Brillman has hit a really good point here that says, and he hit it sort of modestly. I'll underscore his modesty. For the first level, we connected attorneys to talk through it. Now on the second level, we've connected our technology leaders to walk through the 911 connection. After that, we're going to connect our operations leaders to talk about training and operational use. I'm not sure Brillman and I are ever going to talk again. I think we just keep connecting the right people around us to make sure the thing happens, right?
I forgot about that. Yeah.
It's your whole team.
We're going to send our folks to each other's centers to build the SOPs around this. And so we won't talk to each other except at conferences now.
Right. I mean, I could, right? But who's going to be doing the work? It's going to be our teams. It's going to be our tactical incident dispatch folks that are trained through this type of stuff. So let's put the people that do it every day and are trained to do it into the spaces, and then they can navigate those conversations.
Now, last question. You guys have moderate-sized to large-sized centers. Is this for the small guy and the medium-sized guy as well?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. This doesn't take away from your local failovers. And so this is really our failover will go through multiple stages before it heads out of state. And so we can't forget about helping our locals with failovers and helping our neighbors. But when the region is affected, this is why this is in place.
Well, yeah, that's something that derecho taught us, right? When a large geographic region is impacted, wow, hey, not only am I gone, my backup, my tertiary's gone, and so are theirs. I've got nobody to go to because everybody was close.
I'm curious, Brillman, now that we bring this up, did y'all have impacts from the riots around Memorial Day in May of 2020 following the George Floyd incident?
I think everybody was impacted. When there's an unrest, I lived through that in Baltimore, your phones don't stop ringing. And so they'll start ringing to your surrounding counties. Cell towers are overloaded. That's another man-made disaster that you can add to the list of overwhelming your center.
Sure, and we did too in that situation. We had folks that stormed the courthouse and tried to set it on fire and all this on that weekend, and it was all over the country and that particular weekend in various spots. So that's worth just a conversation, right? This is best effort. Our agreement here says we'll do our best to help you. You do your best to help me. And if we both happen to be inundated by the same incident just for some weird accident, we catch that derecho, we catch that man-made moment, we're both going to focus on answering our local calls first. And I believe we've got staff on both sides to make some impact to help the other side also, assuming there's some significant impact. But it's really a handshake agreement that says, hey, we're gonna be there to help answer your call if you absolutely need us. And there's a lot of comfort in that.
Absolutely. Well, that's fantastic. Scott Brillman, Executive Director of Fairfax 911, the house that Souter built. Take care of that place, my friend. There's a lot of good memories in there. And congratulations, you're doing a fantastic job. And Mr. Martini, what can I say, my friend? You're in charge of one of my most important assets in your metro area. Keep taking care of that little girl down there. And
we got you.
And thanks for all that you do down there. Again, another beautiful center. Two leaders who have just put aside problems and said, let's go get a napkin and work this out. And then we'll worry about the details as we get there. And you know what? Sometimes that works. So
it's working today. Do you still have that napkin, Brillman? I'm going to frame that.
I think I do, but I also have a picture that somebody took when we were together.
No way. That's funny.
Let's see if I can pull it up. Let me see if this works. This is when we were brainstorming.
Wow. The birth of the idea and that Disney wand that somehow made it to that table.
Yeah, I don't know. That's the magical wand that made it happen.
That is the magical wand that made it happen.
That's history right there.
That's amazing.
Well, you know what a perfect way to top it off and end it. Thank you very much. Scott, Steve, two heroes of mine. Thank you guys for all you do every day and your centers and all your staff. True heroes out there. And we'll see you guys down at 911 Goes to Washington.
Thanks, man.
Have a great day.